The wind howled across the red dunes of Carxus, carrying whispers of the dead. Jake Mercer wiped sweat from his brow, his fingers brushing against the scar on his cheek, a souvenir from the war. He wasn't supposed to be here. The alien ruins were forbidden, marked by the ruling Vortha as cursed ground, but Jake had never been good at following rules. His digging tool struck something hard, metal. He crouched, brushing away the rust-colored sand. The shape beneath was unmistakable, a sword, not Vorthan, not any design he'd seen before. The hilt was wrapped in blackened leather, the crossguard etched with strange symbols, and the blade. Jake's breath caught. Engraved near the base, in perfect ancient English. All enemies of the fallen warrior are now your enemies. His blood turned to ice, English human writing on an alien world. A shadow fell over him. You shouldn't be here, human. Jake spun. A Vorthan guard loomed over him, his 4 eyes narrowed, his armored hand resting on a pulse rifle. Jake's grip tightened on the sword. The moment his fingers closed around the hilt, a jolt shot through him, like lightning in his veins. The Vorthan's eyes widened. That weapon, it's forbidden. Jake didn't think, he moved. The sword sang as it cut through the air, faster than should have been possible. The Vorthan's rifle split in 2, sparking. The alien stumbled back, fear flashing across his face. Jake didn't understand. He hadn't trained with swords. He was a mechanic, a scavenger. But his body remembered movements he'd never learned. More guards appeared over the dunes. Jake ran. The sword hummed in his grip, whispering in a language he didn't know but somehow understood. Run, fight, survive. And beneath it all, one terrifying truth. This wasn't just a weapon. It was a curse, and it had chosen him. Jake didn't stop running until his lungs burned. The ruins gave way to the jagged cliffs of the Black Maw, a maze of tunnels carved by ancient rivers. Safe, for now. He slumped against the rock, gasping. The sword lay across his knees, still humming faintly like a sleeping beast. What the hell did I just pick up? He turned it over in his hands. The blade was flawless, untouched by time, despite being buried in the sand for who knows how long. The inscription glinted under Carxus, twin suns. All enemies of the fallen warrior are now your enemies. A shiver ran down his spine. A sound made him freeze, not Vorthan, something lighter. You're holding death in your hands, human. Jake spun, the sword flashing up in defense. A small figure stood in the shadows, smooth blue skin, large silver eyes reflecting the dim light. A Keth. Jake had seen them in the trading hubs. Scholars, historians, scribes, not fighters. This one looked terrified. You have the death blade, the Keth whispered. Jake frowned. The what? The weapon of the last night, the one who defied the Vortha. The alien's voice trembled. They killed him, and now they'll kill you. Jake's grip tightened. Why? The Keth hesitated, then stepped closer. Because the sword doesn't just carry a warning, it carries a promise. A distant roar echoed, Vorthan skiffs, their engines tearing through the sky, searching. The Keth grabbed Jake's arm. Come with me if you want to live. Jake had no choice. He followed. The Keth's secret. Her name was Vera. She moved like a ghost through the tunnels, her bare feet silent against the stone. Jake, meanwhile, felt like a damn avalanche, every footstep too loud, every breath too heavy. Why are you helping me? He hissed. Vera didn't look back. Because the last night was the only one who ever stood against the Vortha, and now you carry his will. Jake gritted his teeth. I didn't ask for this. It doesn't matter, she said simply. The sword chooses, and it chose you. The tunnels twisted deeper, the air growing colder. Strange carvings lined the walls, figures in battle, a lone warrior holding a blade aloft. Jake's stomach dropped. That's the sword. Vera nodded, and that's him, the last night. The mural showed a human. Armor like nothing Jake had ever seen, a helmet shaped like a snarling beast, and in his hands, the same damn sword Jake now carried. How long ago was this? Vera's voice was quiet. 1,000 cycles, maybe more. Jake's head spun. There were humans here before. Yes, she stopped before a massive door, carved with the same symbols as the sword's hilt. They came in a great ship, fleeing a dying world. The Vortha hunted them down, all but one. The last night. Jake stared at the sword, and this was his. Yes, and now it's yours. She pressed her palm against the door, which means his war is yours too. The door groaned open. Inside lay a ship. Human, ancient, and alive. The awakening. The moment Jake stepped inside, the ship's systems roared to life. Lights flickered on, panels humming as dust fell from the ceiling. A voice echoed through the rusted halls, mechanical yet eerily human. Identity confirmed, genetic signature human, designation inheritor. Jake's breath caught, you know me. Negative, but the sword does. You are bound to its legacy. Vera's eyes widened. It recognizes you. The ship's main screen lit up, displaying a star map. A single planet pulsed red. Earth, or what was left of it. Jake's hands shook. This isn't just about Carxus, is it? The ship's voice grew grim. No inheritor, the war never ended. The truth. The records spilled across the screen. Images of a human colony on Carxus thriving. Then the Vortha, their warships darkening the sky, slaughter, enslavement. The last night fighting back, alone. Jake's fists clenched. They wiped us out. Vera looked sick. My people we never knew. Because the Vortha rewrote history, the ship said. They claimed this world as theirs, they erased you. Jake stared at the sword. Now he understood. This wasn't just a weapon. It was a declaration of war. And he was holding it. The storm comes. Outside, the ground shook. Vera grabbed Jake's arm. They're here. The ship's sensors flashed, dozens of Vorthan skiffs descending on their location. Jake turned to the ship. Can you fly? Engines at 37% capacity, weapons offline. Great. Vera's grip tightened. What do we do? Jake looked at the sword. It hummed in response. We fight. The ship's alarms screamed as the Vorthan skiffs opened fire. Jake grabbed Vera and yanked her behind a crumbling support beam as plasma bolts scorched the ancient hull. The air smelled of ozone and burning metal. 37% engines won't get us anywhere, Jake shouted over the din. Vera's silver eyes darted across the control panels. There, she pointed to a flickering schematic. Emergency thrusters, we can. A direct hit rocked the ship. The lights died. For 3 heartbeats, they stood in darkness, the only sound their ragged breathing and the sword's eerie hum. Then, with a reluctant groan, the backup power engaged. The ship's AI spoke, its voice distorted. Warning, structural integrity compromised. Recommend immediate evacuation. Jake's grip tightened on the sword. We're not running. Then we die, Vera said simply. The blade pulsed in Jake's hand. A sudden violent image flashed through his mind, a memory not his own. The last night standing where Jake now stood, surrounded by enemies, the ship's engines roaring to life. No, Jake breathed, we don't run, we ram. The ghost of war. Vera stared at him like he'd gone mad. You want to crash this ship? Not crash. Jake dragged his fingers across the dusty console. The knight knew this ship was never meant to fly again, it's a weapon. The AI confirmed it. Contained antimatter core detected. Detonation yield 4.2 megatons. The color drained from Vera's face. You're talking about a suicide run. Another impact, more warning lights. Jake met her gaze. I'm talking about sending a message. The sword burned in his grip, whispering its approval. The choice. They fought their way to the engine room. Jake with the sword cutting through fallen debris, Vera with a scavenged plasma cutter. The core pulsed behind reinforced glass, a contained sun waiting to be unleashed. We'll never reach the command ship, Vera argued. They're shields. Don't need to. Jake entered the override codes flashing in his mind, codes the sword gave him. We just need them close enough. The ship groaned as its last engines flared to life. Outside, the Vorthan skiffs scattered as the ancient vessel lurched upward, a dying beast rising for one final strike. The fall. Alarms wailed. The Vorthan command ship loomed ahead, its massive cannons turning toward them. Brace, Jake roared. The impact shattered the world. Metal screamed, fire bloomed. And as the explosion lit the sky, The sword's whisper cut through the chaos. Now they will remember. Jake opened his eyes to smoke and silence. The world came back in pieces, the acrid smell of burning wiring, the taste of blood in his mouth, the sword still clenched in his fist. The blade glowed faintly, casting eerie shadows across the ruined engine room. Vera groaned beside him, her blue skin streaked with soot. "We're alive." Barely, Jake coughed. The ship was dead, its hull torn open to Carx's crimson sky. Through the gaping wounds in the metal, he could see the aftermath, the Vorthan command ship listing badly, half its engines dark. They'd hurt them, but not enough. The Hunt BEGINS. The sound of approaching hover units sent them scrambling into the ruins. "They'll scour the wreckage," Vera whispered as they crouched behind a collapsed pillar. "When they don't find bodies." Jake watched the search parties descend. The sword hummed impatiently in his grip. "Then we make sure they're looking in the wrong places." He closed his eyes, and the sword showed him how. The last night moving through shadows, striking fast, disappearing. When Jake opened his eyes again, he knew what to do. First blood. The lone Vorthan scout never saw them coming. Jake moved like liquid darkness, the sword flashing once. The alien crumpled without a sound. Vera stared at the body, then at Jake. "You've never fought like this before." "No," Jake admitted, looking at the blood on the blade. "But he did." The sword pulsed warmly, sharing memories of 100 battles. The spark. By nightfall, they'd hit 3 more patrols. Whispers spread through the Vorthan ranks. The Deathblade had returned. In the ruins, the oppressed Keth watched and hoped. One, bolder than the rest, brought them food and medicine. "They say you're the inheritor," the young Keth whispered, eyes wide as he looked at Jake's sword. Vera exchanged glances with Jake. The rebellion had begun. The storm gathers. Deep in the ruins, they found it, the last knight's armor hidden away for centuries. As Jake fastened the greaves, the sword sang with triumph. Vera touched the ancient insignia on the breastplate. "What does this mean?" Jake knew without knowing. "It means we're not hiding anymore." Outside, thunder rolled across the desert. The Vortha were coming. And this time, Jake would be ready. The moment Jake fastened the last knight's helmet, the world shifted. 1,000 voices screamed in his skull, memories of battles fought centuries before he was born. The armor systems flared to life, HUD displays flickering across the visor in an archaic dialect of English he somehow understood. "Neural link established," a mechanized voice intoned. "Welcome back, Inheritor." Vera took a step back as the armor's power cells hummed. "Jake, your eyes." He turned toward a shattered piece of reflective metal. His irises glowed the same eerie blue as the sword's edge. The sword thrummed in approval. The first test. They came at dawn. A full Vorthan assault battalion, hover tanks, drones, and at least 50 armored warriors. The ground trembled under their advance. Vera's hands shook as she checked her stolen pulse rifle. "This is suicide." Jake adjusted his grip on the sword. The armor systems calculated enemy positions, suggested attack vectors, like having a ghost of the last night whispering tactics in his ear. "No," he said, "this is payback." Then he charged. How the legends begin. The armor made him fast. Jake moved like liquid death, the sword carving through Vorthan alloy like paper. Plasma bolts sizzled harmlessly against his energized plating. The HUD tracked every threat, every opening. Vera watched in stunned awe from the ruins, picking off stragglers with precise shots. One Vorthan officer screamed into his comm. "It's him! The knight has returned!" The sword drank their fear like wine. The cost. They want. But as the last Vorthan fell, Jake collapsed to his knees. Blood trickled from his nose, steaming where it hit the armor's chest plate. Vera rushed to his side. "The neural link is burning you out." Jake ripped off the helmet, gasping. The HUD displays faded from his vision, but the damage was done. His head pounded like someone had taken a drill to his skull. The sword lay quiet now, waiting. The truth, REVLED. That night, as Jake recovered, Vera deciphered more of the armor's logs. "It's not just a weapon system," she whispered. "It's a recording device, the last night. He didn't just fight the Vortha here. The holographic display showed star maps, dozens of worlds, each marked with the same insignia. Jake understood. This was never just about Carxus. The Vortha have been doing this everywhere. The sword pulsed in agreement. The choice. Vera looked at the star maps, then at Jake. What now? Jake picked up the sword. The armor responded instantly, plates shifting to accommodate his movement. Now, he said, we show them what happens when you make an enemy of humanity. Somewhere in the desert, thunder rolled. But this time, it wasn't a storm coming. It was an army. The desert sands trembled beneath the march of 1,000 armored boots. Jake stood atop the ruins, the last knight's armor gleaming under Carxus' twin suns. Below him, the first true army of Free Keth and rebel Vortha gathered, a ragged band of survivors, their faces alight with something long forgotten on this world. Hope. Vera adjusted her scavenged combat rig beside him. The forward scouts report 3 legions moving toward us. They've brought siege weapons. The sword hummed in Jake's grip, its edge catching the light. Let them come. The GHOSDS of KHRXIS. As night fell, Jake walked among the ruins alone. The armor showed him things, echoes of the past. Here, a marketplace where human colonists once bartered with Keth artisans. There, a schoolhouse where children of 2 species learned together. All erased. All buried under Vortha lies. The sword's glow intensified, casting long shadows that seemed to move on their own. Show me, Jake whispered. And the last night's memories obliged. The price of war. Dawn brought the enemy. The Vortha legions crested the dunes like a steel tide, their war machines belching black smoke into the crimson sky. Jake's rebels took their positions, Keth snipers in the high ruins, Vortha dissenters manning captured artillery, humans descendants of hidden survivors, ready with jury-rigged plasma rifles. Vera touched his armored shoulder. After this, there's no going back. Jake activated his helmet. The HUD flared to life, tactical readouts overlaying his vision. We weren't ever going back. How the sword SINGS. The battle began with artillery fire. Jake moved like vengeance incarnate. The armor made him faster than any living being had a right to be, dodging plasma bursts, leaping over trenches, the sword carving through tanks like they were made of paper. But the Vortha had learned. Special units armed with neural disruptors targeted him. The first blast sent Jake to his knees, the armor's systems screeching in his skull. Vera's voice crackled in his comm. Jake there. The sword flared white-hot in his hands. And then, silence. The last night's gift. Jake found himself standing in a starless void. Before him loomed a figure in identical armor, the last knight himself, his helmet cracked, his sword notched from countless battles. You've come far, inheritor. Jake tried to speak, but no sound came. The knight raised his blade, but the war demands more, always more. Light erupted between them. The turning tide. And Jake awoke amidst chaos. The armor had changed. New energy coursed through its systems. The sword blazed with impossible light. Before him, the Vortha disruptor teams recoiled in terror. Jake rose. The rebels rallied. And across the battlefield, every fallen warrior's weapon twitched. The battlefield held its breath. Every fallen weapon, Vorthan pulse rifles, Keth plasma blades, even the shattered remains of human firearms from centuries past, trembled in the crimson sand. The sword in Jake's hand blazed like a captured star, its light painting the armor in shifting hues of blue and gold. A Vorthan commander screamed orders to retreat. His troops didn't move. They couldn't. The same force that animated the dead weapons held them frozen in terror. Jake raised the sword, and 1,000 blades rose with him. The reckoning. What happened next would be sung about for generations. The weapons moved as if wielded by ghostly hands, cutting through Vorthan ranks with surgical precision. Jake stood at the storm's eye, the armor's systems overloading with power, the last night's memories flooding his mind. Vera watched from the ruins, her rifle forgotten in her hands. This wasn't war. This was judgment. A Vorthan dropship exploded midair, torn apart by a swarm of flying blades. The sword's whisper cut through the chaos. Finish it. The last choice. At the battle's climax, Jake faced the Vorthan High Marshal alone. The massive alien leveled his ceremonial spear, its edge crackling with energy. You cannot win, human. Even if you kill me, more will come. Jake's helmet retracted, revealing his blood-streaked face. The armor's glow reflected in the Marshal's 4 eyes. Then you'd better deliver a message for me. Jake drove the sword into the sand. The weapon stilled. The battlefield fell silent. Tell them Carxis remembers. Tell them we remember. The dawn. In the days that followed, the Vorthan legions withdrew. The Keth reclaimed their cities. And deep in the ruins, Vera found Jake sitting before the ancient human ship's wreckage, his armor discarded, the sword across his knees. They're calling you the Second Knight, she said, sitting beside him. Jake smiled tiredly. There won't be a third. He nodded to a newly uncovered chamber in the ruins, a vault containing dozens of untouched human relics. We're done hiding. The swords rest. On the first anniversary of the battle, they built a memorial. The last knight's armor stood enshrined in the center of New Carthage, the rebuilt human Keth capital. But the sword... Jake placed it back where he'd found it, deep in the desert sands. Let the next warrior earn it, he told Vera. As they walked away, the wind howled across the dunes. And somewhere beneath the shifting sands, the sword hummed quietly. Waiting. The transmission reached Carxis 6 months later. Jake and Vera stood on the observation deck as the decoded message played. To any human survivors, this is Captain Elias Vance of the EFS Retribution. We're coming. The stars outside burned a little brighter that night.